This episode is sponsored by RSVP. RSVP brings together two established video playback companies into one powerhouse with over 50 years of on-set knowledge. The experienced and growing team are all skilled in the latest recording software with up-to-date HD video recording equipment, HD monitors, and HD wireless packages. RSVP understand that the requirements for every shoot are different, so for a tailored quote, get in touch at info@rsvp.london.
Let's get started.
Hola film family, I'm Isusko, your host, aka the Time Scheduler. Welcome to the Film Gods podcast, which is a chat with the best of the UK film crew who make all of those beautiful moving images you watch every day. I want to give a special thanks to Island Studios for the recording space. Thank you, Mark, Mitch, Pauline, and the whole team. And wherever you're listening, hope you enjoy. Big love. So, hello. It's a pleasure to have our special guest in for today. Famous for her phrase for all those crew members who ask really simple questions. It is on the call sheet. So, hello. So, what is your name and what is your role on the call sheet?
Hello, my name's Shion Hayasaka and I am a producer.
Nice. So, what does a producer do?
So predominantly the producer works with the director, kind of side by side, I would say. He's kind of like, or she is the creative figurehead, and I work alongside them to help that process. A big thing is I run the budget. Okay. I have to do a schedule, and not a schedule like you do, like a production schedule. So.
What would be what's the start and an end of a job then? What would the normal schedule look like?
So it's usually a few weeks, depending on how big the job is, and you would do, you schedule it so you get your script and you go right through to finishing post-production. So you've got your shoot kind of in the middle of that, and you've got all the prep before that. You've got to find your locations, you've got to do the casting, your recce's, find your crew,
cool,
do the shoot, and then go into the edit and do some post. So you see it right through to the end.
Okay.
And you've got to make sure that you stick to the schedule and ideally stay within budget.
Okay. Is any of those sections more important than the other, or do they all have relatively the same importance for you as a producer?
I think it depends on the job. Sometimes it's really important to get the casting is the most important thing because the performances are really important, or it's all technical, so maybe there's some kind of important camera move, or it's post-production heavy, so you've got to get your post house involved early, talking to them. I think as a producer it's really important to recognise what the most important parts of those jobs are and to make sure that you're thinking about those, engaging the right people. And
how do you know what's the most important thing? Do you get it from the scripts, from the boards, or is it just a client chat or a director's meeting?
All of those things, I think. And then I think you kind of instinctively go with talking to the director. I think they need to kind of lead the creative on that. But
so I guess they've already pitched on it. So would they have already known? How does when do you come into the job and what's already kind of gone on before that?
Yeah. So if we're talking about TV commercials, which is mostly what I work on, I suppose what we work on together. So there's a script that comes in from the advertising agency and we pitch on that script against maybe 2 or 3 other directors. And
in other companies, same company, or
always
doesn't matter?
Other companies. You wouldn't really have a production company competing against itself.
Okay.
So
didn't know that.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
No, it's quite a sort of political thing.
Okay.
You might put 1 or 2 directors. You might suggest 1 or 2 directors from your roster, and then the agency pick which one they want to engage. But you wouldn't compete against yourself.
No.
So I come into it around then, and when we're working on the treatment, which is kind of the document that you put together for your pitch, so you kind of outline your creative vision for the film or films, I work alongside that process to work out what the budget would be, how we would do it, and I then have all the conversations with the ad agency, and I might ring up people who are more skilled than me to kind of advise on different parts of the budget. So I might call you, for example, and go, how many days do you think I would need to shoot this script? You know, like, could you help me break it down? Or I might ring a post house to be like, how would I achieve this particular shot that's complex in some way? Or I might ring, I don't know, a camera house.
So trying to get as much info, realistic information to then create a budget that's almost as accurate as possible. Yeah, because I guess
without kind of getting into the specifics of the job, you kind of have to win the job. It's quite important to like not be pie in the sky as well, because the budgets these days are pretty challenging. Like I think in the past 10 years, budgets have kind of tightened, and you're supposed to deliver more now for kind of less money.
Yeah, there's no
so
Nespressos on set.
Clever about things, no more Nespresso pods. Everyone get your own or filter coffee. Yeah, so it's the challenge of like also working with the director to be like, how can we be clever about this?
Okay.
Can we, you know, is there a, I don't know. So I put together a budget and we send that off, and then we win the job. If we win the job, then that's when we start to spend the money, engage the people, have all the conversations about how to actually execute it.
Okay. And then relationships with the directors, is that something that you already have, or do you sometimes just get put with new people, or how does that work for you in that process in the beginning?
Yeah, so at the beginning, it was new directors, and I think companies kind of try you out with different people, and you either have, you know, a good rapport or you don't quite get on. Actually, that's not really happened. And now I have a kind of like list of directors that I work with quite regularly.
Nice.
And then also really happy to work with new people as well.
Cool. And so you've got going through that timeline, you've won the pitch.
Yeah.
It's a director. The budget's all out there. How long's that prep period on average, and what do you do, and who do you engage with?
It's usually at least a couple of weeks if you're doing like a simple 1 day shoot in, you know, and there's not too much to look for, like not too many locations, not too much casting. It could be a couple of weeks, or it could be like 2 months.
What's the longest one you've done?
I think probably 2 months I did last year, because it was like round the world. So we were shooting in Poland and then China, and then there was a leg in Arizona, and just to get all of that sorted. And we were going from like one to the other. So we had different, you know, there was different stuff to sort out in each place. So between getting the job and shooting Arizona, I think there was like more than 8 weeks.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then your team, what's your team around you? Who do you like to have? What roles do you have under you?
Normally, on a job, I'd work with a production manager who I get on as early as I possibly can, because they're the actual boss. And then a production assistant or two.
Yeah.
And they work in the office with me to prep the job, so they help. They help with all the admin, running the schedule, making sure everyone's informed. So our job as a department is to make sure that all the communication's happening between all the different other departments. So like the location managers know what they're doing, the costume department are briefed, the camera department have put their lists into the camera house, and all this information is kind of being fed back into me, or the production manager, and we're kind of managing that, and so they kind of run the production bit once they get going.
Like the nuts and bolts.
The nuts and bolts. And then my job is to kind of keep the communication between the director and the ad agency going, and that they are aware of what's going on and what decisions we're making. And, you know, we like these locations, so we present those, and we have these PPMs, which are pre-production meetings, which we get in a room with the agency and the client maybe a week before the shoot, and we explain kind of everything where we've got to.
Okay, and those PPMs, are they a couple of hours long? Is it something that you prep for, or
to go on? Usually a couple of hours. So it's like you go through the storyboard, which is one of the first things that you work on with the director, where he kind of draws out the shot list.
Okay.
So that's the first thing that you go through in the PPM. The client sort of make their comments like, you know,
need some more tighter shots of this, wider shots of that.
A reaction shot of the kid here or something like that. And then we go through like the mood boards for like art department, wardrobe. We might present our locations, we'll present our cast, we'll show them videos from the castings that we do. And in that PPM, everything's meant to get approved so that then we can then sort of move forward with the next stage of production.
Mm-hmm. So it's like a chance for them to have their say on the director's vision that he's or she has interpreted.
And it's often the first time they've been in the room together, the director and the client. They might not have even spoken on the phone.
Okay.
Because everything's
just
kind of done
through
on
the documents and yourself.
Yeah, so it's your first chance to like actually explain to them and meet in person and chat things through, and they can also explain to us what's important to them. So for example, last month I was doing an advert for the British Art Foundation, and the people from British Art Foundation could explain to us what bits of their brand they wanted us to kind of emphasize in the ad, and why certain things were important, because it was all about vascular dementia rather than like a direct heart problem. It was like strokes that you could get from dementia you can get from a heart condition. So it's like more about that rather than, and it was important to them because that's
something that people don't even know.
Don't relate with British Heart Foundation. So
amazing.
To sit in a room with them and them explain that helps us to understand what part of the film we need to sort of emphasise, if you like. Yeah.
Cool.
And then it's my job to then explain that to everyone else helping make the film.
Nice.
Yeah.
So you've got the pitch, you've done the boards and the treatment, the PPM has gone well, everyone's happy, there might be a few little minor changes here and there, but on the whole everything's ticked off.
Ideally.
The next phase is then shooting?
Yeah.
Or is there a little buffer or something between PPM and shooting?
Well, yeah, you do your tech recce probably after that. So that's when us and the heads of department, so the first AD, the location manager, the DP,
Gaffer's grip.
We all go and see the locations and we work out exactly what we need for each shot. Again, hopefully, ideally, that's what we do.
Come away with a plan, ish.
Yeah. So that's a really important part of the production stage, is just to get in a location or in a meeting with everyone to work out what we're going to do and how we're going to do it. And after that, the shoot becomes a tangible thing. Like people go away and you would work on a schedule, and that would become our sort of Bible for what we're doing for the shoot. And then there's, we know what camera equipment we're using, we know what lighting equipment's needed, like all of this stuff comes together, and that's when the budget falls apart.
Oh, you need how many of those?
So many after the tech recce, tear your hair out moment.
But I guess it's really tricky to make a budget without because you're basically making a budget on some written words without knowing anything,
totally,
really.
Yeah. It's something that I think about a lot, because it's almost like you want to do the tech recce before you do the budget.
Yeah.
Because it's so, it can be so different from where you started. So you've just got to basically use your best instincts and cover yourself for...
Do they get easier to do? As you do, what was the first one like? You're like, oh my God, I don't know what...
Yeah, I think the first time I did a budget, I was absolutely terrified. But I suppose when you're coming up the ranks, you often get an opportunity to they might be like, oh, we need to do an extra day on this job because they want an extra, I don't know, pack shot of the crisps. Can you do a quick budget for a studio shoot day? And the production manager might be asked to do that, and that's a good opportunity to like cut your teeth on a small budget. And then you start to kind of know what's needed.
Well, that leads us into a really, like, coming up the ranks. So how did you get in then? What was your
my very
path in?
first entry point?
Yeah, what was the point where you're kind of a student, and then you're then on in a professional environment of some description?
So my first job in the industry was a runner in a sound studio.
Boom.
Which I got just after I graduated. I really needed some summer cash, and my friend was working in a sound studio on reception.
Film degree or non-film degree?
Me?
Yeah.
Film degree,
Okay.
but a theory one, not a practical filmmaking one.
Useful?
I watched a lot of movies.
And this is your degree? Yes, Mum, this is my degree. I watched the Godfather trilogy 3 times.
Citizen Kane. It was useful for some things. Like, I'm film literate, and I can talk about films, but I was not prepared for.
It didn't prepare you for a runner in a sound studio, no? Oh, God.
Sleeping till 2 p.m. and watching movies is not anything like.
Sounds amazing.
But yeah, my first job was a runner, so it was in Soho, and my job was to fetch people food. I couldn't believe how much people eat. Like,
constant.
People come in, sit on these lovely sofas, and you do, it was like for recording voiceovers.
Okay, ADR, voiceovers, yeah.
So my job was to stand in the kitchen of the building and
make the food.
and someone would ring up and you'd go, "Hello, kitchen."
I'd like a club sandwich. Off you go to prep.
And then they're like, "Oh, so we'd like, a juice from here, and the salad from a different place, and hot fries from here," and you'd have to like run around Soho and get it. But I thought it was great. I learnt Soho really well, and it was really fun. I was sort of with people my age, and then whilst I was doing that, which was only a few days a week, I was interviewing for jobs, and I applied for a job off Mandy.com.
Oh, yeah.
I think it still exists.
Still exists.
Yeah. And it was for a reception job at Rogue Films, and I was like, do you know what Rogue Films is? Never heard of it before. And I went for the interview. I think I did 2 interviews, and then I did a trial day. It was all very like official. Got the job, and then I sat on reception and learned the ins and outs of a production company from there, really. Yeah.
Amazing. And did you know production, or did you have any idea? Were you like, I want to be the next? I loved editing. I loved directing, or how did you just fall into it?
Oh, I see. I was really interested in production. I had no idea that people make ads. Like I didn't even think of
just
it. Just
saw them and like, oh,
but there's this enormous industry booming in London at the time. All these production companies making adverts, getting awards for adverts. I was like, really? Couldn't believe it. And then, but I found it really exciting and interesting, and they would talk about shoots that they'd been on, and what appealed to me was the short-termness of it. I think when I started out, I definitely wanted to like be in films, but the more I spoke to people about working on feature films, is how long they are, and how like they're so
time consuming. They take your life over.
And like I still have so much admiration for people that work on films. I think they're the true filmmakers, but it was really exciting to me that you could do that, but like in a sort of short-term kind of way, and it all sounded very exciting and very glamorous to me as I sat on reception.
So reception to production, that feels in-house. That feels like a natural step up, a natural progression in.
Yeah. So I was at that company for 6 years, or
was it that long?
Just less, maybe.
Yeah.
2007 to 2013. So I was on reception, and then they made me a PA after a year, and then I became a PM at some point. There was no official, you are now a PM. Like, well done. It was more just like, I think I might have just been like, I'm the production manager on this job, I'm going to put it on the call sheet.
Yeah. We have 2 PMs on this one.
Yeah.
Oh, do we? Oh, brilliant.
Yeah, I don't know when it was. I think the thing with that department is you take more and more responsibility on every job because you know how to do more.
Yeah.
So you just naturally become more capable and more experienced. There isn't this sort of exact role definition between the department. We all
Got a
share
lot of crossover.
Yeah, and I would say as much as the producer, like I'll still like knock up a locations document, and I'll still like book a taxi for a cast member if needed, like whatever the team needs, and it's the same with them. We all kind of muck in and help each other. There isn't like this is my job and this is your job. I mean, there is a bit, but
I guess there are boundaries that the PM won't be doing certain elements of your job, but those crossover things.
We
I guess that's a cross.
Yeah.
Even when you're running and you're second in your foot, the whole industry feels like there's that kind of little bit of it's my job, but actually we're kind of helping. Sparks given a C stands for wardrobe to do this. It's quite.
You're right. It's a whole team effort. That's what I really love about this job and this industry is that we're like it's very collaborative and very it's teamwork.
Okay. And so was there ever like a lightning bolt moment where you're like, okay, I've been doing this for X amount of months or years, and you go, I'm sticking at it? Or have you just suddenly gone, oh God, I've been in it now for 13 years? How does that go past?
Yeah, I think maybe more the latter, but I suppose my lightning bolt moment was I'd been producing for quite a bit of time, and I regretfully did a PMing job after about a year of not, or maybe more, a year and a half maybe. It'd been a really long time, and I got asked by a producer that I'd worked with a few times, and he was like, look, I'm doing this massive job, I really would love you to do it. And I was like, oh, I don't know. And I was really unsure about doing it. I hadn't done it for a long time, and I did the job, and then at the end of it, or at some point through it, I was like, I shouldn't have taken a job that feels like I've gone back. I wasn't good. I should have.
You weren't in the swing of PMing.
I wasn't in the swing of like a task-based job like PMing is, and I think that was my moment of like, okay, I've got to look forward. I can't, I've got to realise that I'm a producer now. And that got rid of the imposter syndrome thing. I think I had when I first started producing.
It's like all of us. It's like any time you step up, there'll be a runner that will do a bit of first and that's going to be nervous. There's, the first time you second, the first time you... Exactly. And I guess there does,
all departments have that sort of moment of stepping up, and it takes a minute to sort of feel comfortable in the shoes, I think.
Yeah.
I've talked about it a lot because like there's a lot of... It's weird actually, a lot with ADs more than any other department who've stepped up to firsting. I'm sure we've talked about it. Of that sort of... And
what am I doing here? Look calm.
Yeah, and also just like wearing it, and knowing that you can do it, and also making it your own, not trying to be like trying to do it like someone that you worked underneath or that you've seen do it before. It's like, no, I'm a producer. You can kind of make that role your own to an extent. You know what your responsibilities are, but I also... I'm like, well, I'm not going to do things like just because I've seen someone else do it like that. It's not necessarily gospel.
Is that an important thing then to have seen others do it, or could you have just kind of come out of uni and gone, I'm a producer?
Not for me. There are a lot of people who do just start producing and find their way of how to do it. Yeah, and I think good on them. I'm not like that, and I need guidance. And I spent several years PMing. I did that for a really, really, really long time, and I was very confident at it, and I was good at it. But I'm really happy for that time to have worked under some really brilliant producers, a lot of them at Rogue and freelancing, and did a stint in fashion, and all of that knowledge, I like to think that I've picked some of the best qualities of people that I admire and tried to make that like the producer that I am.
Yeah. It's learning from other people's, not mistakes, but just kind of, your personality type isn't other people's. So you've got to figure out who you are, I guess, as well to...
Ultimately, that's the thing. You can't be someone you're not.
Right.
So you just got to be true to that. But I think there are qualities that you can take on, It's like, I think it's really important to be honest. I think it's important to be patient. I think one of the things that makes a producer very good is communicating and taking time to explain things to people. You can't just expect people to understand a job after being in it for an hour when you've been on it for 3 weeks. Like, you've got to give the time and the explanation and how you got here, and that just helps someone understand what you're trying to explain to them so much better. And communication is definitely the most important part of the job.
And then, so we've spoken about kind of the timeline of a job. You're on a shoot now. You've got everything approved. Everything's there. Everything's turned up. What is then the role of the producer on the day of the shoot?
Predominantly, it's to make sure it runs smoothly. So you've got the agency and the client there again. Yeah. So you've got to make sure that they understand what you're doing and that they're approving things as they go. That's
communication. From what you said before, that seems...
Yeah. So I bounce between like the director and where you might be standing with them, setting up the shot, working things out, and then I would go and explain that to the agency and client in what we call Video Village, to get things approved and make sure everyone's happy with the shot, and and also I don't know, things come up. You've got to be there to have the conversations, and there are a lot of fires to fight on a shoot, and you've got to, someone, I don't know, silly things like they might not like the wardrobe of one of the actors. So time is like so precious on a shoot, and you've got no time, so you've got to act really quickly and make sure all departments are working. And
where does day one shoot? So say it's a 2-day shoot. You've spent a month in prep. You take regular. In your mind, where does it fit? Like, say if a shoot is the last edit is kind of the bottom of the mountain and you've gone off. Where in that mountain is the shoot day for you in your mind? Is it the peak, or is there anything that is the edit? Can the edit be a little trickier than the shoot?
Yeah, it can be, but it's usually an unexpected thing. I think by the time you've got to the shoot, you want to feel like you're at the top, like you've done all the prep, you've climbed the mountain. That's the really tricky bit, and you want the shoot to go well because all the prep that you did in the last few weeks is to make sure the shoot goes well. It's the most expensive bit of the shoot. It's the most time precious. It's when everyone's working simultaneously to get what you need. So you want to feel like you're at the peak at that point, and then hopefully it's an easy thing, but there are obviously bumps on the way down. An edit might not be as smooth, or like no one can agree on the music. That's often something that can be super tricky. Yeah. But you have a bit more time in the back end, not always loads, but the shoot is not a time for just
an hour's discussion on something.
About something, because it just burns time, and which you don't have. Yeah.
So the shoot's gone well. Amazing, congratulations.
Thanks.
You're on budget, you're on schedule. What's happened? How do you then fit? What's the end of the project looking like? What does it go through? What the process is?
So you get the director will go and edit with the editor. You give them, a few days on their own, a couple of days, or depending on how much there is to edit. And then I'd go in, and before we present the edit to the agency, we'd sort of, as a company, like feed in all our comments, get it to a point where we're happy.
MDs, other producers, other directors, or as a what?
MDs, EPs, so any of the senior people at the company, they might not have been on the shoot, they might not know that much about the project, they might have some, something fresh to give. You're so kind of in the job a lot of the time that you're married to a concept, or you're married to how something should be, and then sometimes someone gives a really like brilliant bit of insight that's like a fresh eye on it. So it's nice to have a bit of a process to kind of share it with people, get their input, and then we take the edit and we show it to the advertising agency. Hopefully they like it, and then we show it to the client. So there's a bit of a sort of approvals process, and then we go into post-production once the edit is locked.
Post-production after the edit being
so you do a grade, which is you can tinker with the colours. You might do a bit of clean-up, bit of VFX, or you might have a big, might have some big, sometimes I've done animation sequences that need to get put into the final film, or you might have a CGI sequence or something.
And you're trying to keep all of this on time, or do you have to take a bit of a standoffish approach at the creative point, or do you still?
So usually when you work on a commercial, the advertising agency actually handle the post-production budget. My budget goes up until the edit, up until the director's cut, or sometimes the agency cut. And then the agency take over the post-production. So they kind of manage that, but we're definitely involved, and I try directors like to stay creatively involved in that bit as well. So it's my responsibility to keep the conversation up. And then we do the final mix for sound. Music might be a composition, might be a track, and then voila, you got your finished film.
It's on there.
30-second advert after weeks and weeks, or whatever it might be.
And what was that first one? The first one that you produced when you saw it on the telly? Did you get a nice little sense of? Was there a proud moment? Obviously, you don't get credits. You don't get credits at the end of a commercial, but it's there.
Yeah, it's there, and you're like, I did it. It's good. Yeah, as long as it's good. Sometimes you're like, that was.
I didn't do that one. Didn't do that one.
Well, a lot of the time as well, you might. What can happen is the director likes one edit, and the client want to do a very different thing in the edit, and sometimes they can go down a different path, and that's a shame when that happens. But that can happen.
So
but
you
then
have
sometimes
two
you
edits,
might work on a director's cut.
Okay.
And that might exist. But in an ideal world, everyone's happy with the same film, and we all work towards that. But
Golden Arrow. Thank you very much. Do producers get Golden Arrow? I guess they do. Or is it more of a production company?
There is a production one, yeah.
For a job or for
Achievement in production, I think it's called.
Stop it. Lifetime award goes to.
One day.
Yeah, we don't. There's no awards for best schedule. It's not.
That's terrible. I mean, I feel like that falls under the production thing,
Hey, I'll come up on stage with you when you win it. I'll be there. That's cool. So, the job's gone well. Everyone's happy.
I love this hypothetical film we're making.
This is brilliant. I think it's amazing. But there's going to be times on jobs where silly little things happen. Have you got any little silly little stories that have happened on set? Any kind of jovial quips?
So many. Well, I mean, every shoot has something funny, I guess. But so the one that sticks in mind the most was my very first shoot. I think I was on the call sheet as like junior PA.
So when you were a reception maybe, and then come.
I think so. Okay. Yeah, I think it was like my first. They allowed me to not be on reception, and it was a shoot for. It was like a government ad to I think it was about teaching or something.
Okay.
So we were shooting in a big school in Essex, and it was shooting all over the school with loads of kids. And I remember I just had no idea what I was doing or who all these people were. But I was just doing what I was told to do.
Yeah.
I think my main job was like to help the second AD.
Wow.
Like not be a runner, but like help with the cast.
Okay.
And because
Like a cast coordinator of
yeah,
sorts.
I think I was doing a lot of paperwork. I was getting people to sign release forms and making. I remember being in that sort of wardrobe area a lot, and it was all very, very scary. I didn't, you don't know who the crew are. It was a big shoot, it's like lots of crew. And I remember at one point I walked into the back of a shot, which was awful. I got told off, and I didn't.
Holding all the letters.
Yeah, I was running from A to B with paperwork. I thought, I'll cut through this corridor. Turns out it was the back of a shot. And I think, it's like,
God.
So bad. So already I'm like mortified. And then I get to the end of the day, or what I thought was the end of the day, and it's 7:00 and we're shooting with kids, so we're not. So when you shoot with kids, you're not allowed to shoot with them beyond certain hours because they're on licenses. So the director waves the producer over, and he's like, I really want. There was this whole kind of conference going on, this little summit. They brought the advertising agency over, and then the second AD comes over to me and he's like, right, Sam wants to do another shot. You need to go and get yourself to wardrobe and put on a school uniform.
Oh, thanks.
So they had obviously had a conversation about who looks the youngest and most clueless on set.
Oh, God. Who was the one at the back of shot earlier?
So I go over to the wardrobe department and they put me in a school uniform.
Oh, no. How old are you?
Shoot. I think I was like 20. And it's this really wide shot of a girl peeking behind a curtain in the school auditorium. So I'm on one side of the auditorium and all the crew and all the agents I just remember they were lined up against the wall of the other side of the room. And the DOP came over to me with this contraption, which I later learned was a light meter, and he's doing some stuff around my face that I didn't really understand. And then we do this shot, which just felt like the longest 45 minutes of my life. Acting.
Oh, God. Is it on YouTube somewhere?
The shot didn't make the edit.
Oh. All of the embarrassment.
Oh, God, it was awful. And since then, I have never... if anyone is talking about who can we get to be in the background of the shot, I am nowhere to be seen.
Nope.
Yeah.
I'm off. I'm done.
Yeah, it's mortifying.
Oh,
I have such
amazing.
respect for actors because I just thought it was mortifying, the whole thing. And my first shoot. Uniform.
On the next one, they're like, "Why does this actress get me to sign release forms?" Brilliant.
That always stuck in my head because it was my very first experience,
That's it, you've done it all.
Yeah, you're up at 6 in the morning, you're exhausted, and then you end the day like that. I genuinely thought they did that as a joke until I learned how much overtime cost, and I was like, no, that was actually a genuine thing they wanted to do.
Wanted it. Yeah. Actually thought they wanted it.
Yeah.
So I guess your first shoot you kind of did, you were PAing, you were helping the second, you were a cast member. Yeah. Having done it all, obviously, what advice have you got then for, I'd say, your younger self? And I don't want to put an age on it. I kind of want you to have a little think about the age and just tell us why that age. But what advice would you give to yourself at that age and why?
That's a good question. I think when I went freelance, which was when I think I was like, I'd been at Rogue for 5 years. I'd never been anywhere else. And then I went and worked at a fashion company, production company for about a year. I was so terrified of going freelance. And then being freelance since then, and I'm not afraid of it anymore, but I was so terrified. And every single job that I took felt like a career decision, or like this is a crossroads, and it's like, no, so I'm just taking a job or I'm not. But I think I overthought everything and I was stressed about it so much. And I think if I could go back, I'd tell my younger self, not to be so afraid or so stressed about each decision, because actually some of the ones that I've made that felt kind of out of my comfort zone or, you know, were scary were the ones that were amazing and the ones that had such payoff because they taught me something or got me further or opened doors or I met people, you know. So I think I just tell myself not to be so afraid. I probably wouldn't have taken that advice, but
And then to the next generation, to those students and media students and A-level students, what do you say to them? What advice have you got to them coming into this game? And I'd probably, it doesn't need to be content specific, whether it's film or whatever it can be. But what would you say? What would you be saying to them?
I think it might feel like you're not. There's so much going on when you're new to the industry, and everyone seems so busy, and everyone seems so important in one way or another. When you're really junior and you're starting out, I think hard work doesn't go unnoticed. People really spot someone who's a hard worker, who's got the right kind of, enthusiasm and temperament. You might not hear it directly, but people will be saying, "God, that runner's brilliant, aren't they?" They're really they've got the right attitude. And I think going into every job with a bit of enthusiasm, a helpful attitude, and being hardworking just goes such a long way. It'll get you so far. So that would be my advice. I think.
Oh, nice. Amazing. All right, well, look, have you got any people or projects or anything that you want to just give a shout out to?
Is this something you say to everyone?
Yeah, this is the first time I'm thinking. But it'd be nice in case you've got something like, I saw something on your Insta about the food banks. Anything you want to shout out about there?
About the food banks?
Is it on the food banks?
Maybe. I mean, well, this sounds awful now because I'm doing a plug for my company on the side rather than for food banks, which are great and everyone should absolutely... Oh, no, you're right, I did.
Find your local food bank or something?
Yes, I put up a link to the local food bank, and I saw that you also give to that, which is great.
Yes.
Yeah.
Hey, why not?
Brilliant.
NLBs,
Yeah, exactly.
Huh?
I
personal projects.
recently,
Whatever,
with my amazing production team, Charlie, Lodder and Jade Almond.
Big up. Big up the Charlies.
We started a silly brand on the side called @GoForHats.
Hats for gophers? Sorry, easy joke. Sorry, go on.
Which is, so we've got caps and beanies, which say the famous phrase, "It's on the call sheet."
It's on the call sheet.
But there's also some other ones that we're bringing out with some different
phrases. New for 2020.
Passive aggressive.
Hello.
Which is just a load of fun.
Just hats. Hats and beanies.
Just hats for now. Who knows? We might expand into merchandise.
Oh, hello.
But yeah, no, it's just a bit of fun. We thought
as I'm here sitting in my RSVP hoodie. Thank you very much.
I don't have a hoodie. I've only got a t-shirt.
It's they're for very special. Very special people only. You know, you got to Jack, you got to step your game up, Spindle, Robbie, step your game up.
I thought I was, but hey. So we did this very silly line of hats, which was just a bit of fun, but now it's turned into an Instagram thing.
Go Geo for hats. Go for hats. Yeah. So on the Insta, go for hats.
Yeah.
Boom. Follow Go for Hats, team. Heard it here first. So, amazing. Beautiful. I'm going to say a massive thank you. Thank you, Shion. Thank you for coming down to the Island Studios.
Thank you.
And Film Family, don't forget to subscribe and share on whatever platform you are listening. Go to the timescheduler.com, the little website that I've got going for the media students, just to help them out, fire it out, let them know. And I guess until next time, that is a wrap. Big love. So that was a chat with the king or queen in the game. I'll give it a shout at the end so you all know the name. It's the Film Gods Podcast. The what? The Film God Podcast. This episode is sponsored by RSVP. RSVP brings together two established video playback companies into one powerhouse with over 50 years of on-set knowledge. The experienced and growing team are all skilled in the latest recording software with up-to-date HD video recording equipment, HD monitors, and HD wireless packages. RSVP understand that the requirements for every shoot are different, so for a tailored quote, get in touch at info@rsvp.london.